Listen very carefully and follow my instructions. Prepare your brain for the Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast.
I mean, look, being an entrepreneur, I would not go through the rest of my life without taking nootropics. Aniracetam, piracetam, oxiracetam, uridine monophosphate, CDP-choline, modafinil, Noopept, forget it. You can always have a better brain.
The Cortex Nootropics podcast is about to begin.
An epically epic. I've run out of words emperoric. If man, is there an emperor? The emperor, the most emperor-like title, an emperor-like intro for an epic podcast. Welcome to episode number 22 of the Cortex Nootropics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Michael Ballo. This is going to be an even quicker podcast than the last one. We're just going to run a 6 to 10 minute podcast on this one because somebody just asked me the question via the YouTube channel. You know, are there particular nootropics to take for martial arts and for athletes? And so I'm going to answer that question here. Preliminary stuff quickly out of the way, though. We're running a special on all three of our nootropics products. And by the way, this is sort of an ongoing special, but I have to mention it. Number one, we wrote the Racetam God Guide. That covers oxiracetam, pramiracetam, piracetam, phenylpiracetam, coliracetam, fastiracetam, nephiracetam, the 8 major nootropic racetams, their sublingual strategies, like dosing them under the tongue, exactly how you're supposed to do it, great strategies that I've distilled over 8.5 years, and then a list with each racetam of other compounds to stack it with. These are some of the most highly effective, situationally specific racetam stacks there are on the planet. It's taken me 8.5 years to figure them out, so they are worth a lot. We put them in a guide. It's called the Racetam God Guide. Get it at livecortex.com. Guess what? Ready? It's digital! So you can download it and read it ASAP and have these stacks forever. The feedback on this product so far has been amazing because people take this. Look, I mean, we got great stacks in there. People take the stacks and they go, wow, finally, the right ingredients for these compounds that I've been trying to fuss with and put together are laid out in a digital guide. This thing is incredible. I got the brain performance, I got the mental energy, got the speed of processing, I got what I wanted. And for some folks, like, they haven't really been able to find the right quantities of particular racetams to get a good effect. But when we put it together in such an easily digestible, like, powerfully tested, actionable way, then folks can actually get the benefits of some of the racetams that they haven't found the road, they haven't been able to find the right doses on. That's called the Racetam God Guide. Get it at livecortex.com. Also, separately, we wrote a general nootropics guide. This is for folks that are, 1 to 5 years into nootropics or brand new to nootropics because it's very, very actionable and easily digestible. It explains powerful stacks, choline, the choline racetam dilemma. Right? It explains why you might need a choline source for the racetams. It explains some of the racetams, not like the Racetam God Guide, but some of them. But it explains modafinil, adrafinil, armodafinil, uridine, alcar stacks, alcar racetam stacks, Noopept nasal spray, and basically everything under the sun that you can think of stacks I've distilled over very many years, and some microdosing and otherwise effective modafinil protocols. I mean, the thing is packed with information. That's called Smarter, Better, Faster. That is also a digital guide. Get it at livecortex.com. Also, our stack. We've got a pre-made stack called Cortex that is an exceptionally powerful frontal lobe, mental energy, speed of processing, and verbal fluency stack. It's got uridine, CDP-choline, artichoke extract, and bacopa monnieri in it. It is a powerful, synergistic mental energy and motivation stack. That's called Cortex. Get it at livecortex.com. All of those products you can get for $5 off by using the coupon code 5 when you check out at our website at livecortex.com. Lastly, we do stack consulting. It's really stack optimization for those that need further refinement in their own personal stacks. Spend 40 minutes with me on a call or a video call, and then 15 additional email correspondences. We can get your stack perfect. You can get all that stuff at livecortex.com. Okay, so let's talk about the notion of which nootropics to take for martial arts, and then separately which nootropics to take for athletes. Okay, because I got both of those questions in one YouTube comment recently. So the answer to those questions is different compounds. So if you're doing martial arts, you're going to want to take different nootropics than if you're doing sports. Like if you're a football player or if you're engaged in some otherwise sports thing. Let's start with martial arts. Relating to martial arts, I think the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to take nootropics that speed you up. You don't want to take nootropics that at least exclusively speed you up, that only speed you up. So that might be modafinil, right? I really wouldn't suggest modafinil for something like that. That would be theacrine, that would be high dose caffeine, like espresso shots. You don't want to go into that territory. That would be tyrosine. You don't want to go into that territory when you're doing martial arts. And the reason you don't want to do that is because you want your brain to be in the place primed for learning, not in the place primed for, like just being an epic beast and doing something like productivity wise. You want to be slow and concentrating and able to retain information and able to learn, which brings me to basically the what to do, what nootropics to take. My best suggestion on nootropics to take with something like martial arts, because you're learning, you're having to do a whole lot of sort of neuromuscular coordination, a lot of brain movement coordination. My suggestion 100% would be racetams, okay? Racetams and or compounds that work on working memory. The other two major compounds that work on working memory besides racetams would be Noopept. That's a Russian pharmaceutical nootropic that works on cholinergic signaling and brain-derived neurotrophic factor in a few areas of the brain, which facilitates learning heavily. And then a research chemical called PRL-853, PRL-8-53. You can Google it or check our video on it on the Cortex YouTube channel. We're going to do a podcast about that too coming up. Or check it out at livecortex.com, where we explain dose ranges and mechanisms and what it really does. But those are memory-centric compounds, but primarily racetams. And if because you want to be learning, and if there would be a racetam or a few racetams that I would suggest for martial arts, the first thing that comes to mind would be pramiracetam. Okay, if you can get pramiracetam to work for you, because some folks don't. I suspect a lot of them just need to change their doses, change their choline sources, do some other things to make them work better. But if you can get pramiracetam to work good for you, that would be my first suggestion. Pramiracetam is lauded as the study racetam. It's a very powerful for a learning racetam. It's like you want to go and sit down and really have better brain function for learning things, retaining information. Pramiracetam is a great bet for that. Okay, so pramiracetam would be my first suggestion. The dose range is, you could go as low as 100 milligrams up to, you could go as high as 700, 800, 1,000 milligrams on pramiracetam. Most folks are going to find their sweet spot around 250 milligrams pramiracetam. Optional choline source if you require a choline source, and if you really need to understand whether or not you would have you would require a choline source, you got to read Smarter, Better, Faster. That's our nootropics guide. That breaks it down. That explains exactly what you need to know, why some folks need choline, some folks don't need choline. That'll break it down. The racetam guide will too. The racetam guide's also going to break that down. So either one of those guides will break it down. You got to get them to understand that. But pramiracetam would be my first suggestion. My second suggestion would be aniracetam. That would be my second suggestion in 700 milligram quantity. 700 to 1,000 is really a good solid dose range, but aniracetam would be my second suggestion on racetams. Of course, we've got Noopept and PRL, which we'll get to in dose ranges here in a second. But aniracetam, shoot for 700 to 1,000 milligrams. Take it with an optional choline source if you're somebody who requires that. But the reason is because aniracetam, its effect, there's studies on this, rat studies, where it just lays out very clearly. You give aniracetam to rats, and they've got a large increase in the release of the facilitation of cholinergic activity and the release of acetylcholine in hippocampal neurons. That's where you learn stuff, in the hippocampus. Okay, so it's very, very cut and dry. It's very, very clear. It's very, very black and white. Aniracetam, is the best. Is one of the other best strategies there. Noopept. The dose on Noopept on the low end is 5 milligrams. On the high end is 30 milligrams. Some folks go higher, but again, most folks don't. Most folks are going to benefit in the lower range. Most folks are going to benefit from 5 to 15 milligrams of Noopept, and that would be my suggestion there too. Noopept. These are all standalones too by themselves. Noopept would be an exceptional strategy. 5 to 15 milligrams. If you require a choline source with Noopept, you just may because of the cholinergic signaling. And in all of these, shoot for either 300 milligrams choline bitartrate or 75 to 200 milligrams of alpha GPC. Again, if you really want to learn, why you might need a choline source, get Smarter, Better, Faster or the racetam guide. Both of those break it down in very, very fine detail. And then lastly, the strategy would be, separately. Again, all these are separate. Would be PRL-853. PRL-853 you can get from a company called Ceretropic. Ceretropic, I believe it's spelled. If I'm wrong, just Google it. Serotropic.com, and we have no affiliation with them, but they have PRL 853 and it's good quality. That's a research chemical that's postulated to be cholinergic, meaning it works on acetylcholine signaling in the brain. It's not really elucidated on how, so nobody really knows at this point. Might be some dopaminergic signaling going on there too. That's what people sort of suspect, but it's a research chemical, so there's not much studies on it. There's like one by the patent holder. And so there's not a whole lot of information, but there is a lot of anecdotal experience with it. I've tried it on at least 15 occasions, and it improves my working memory better than basically anything, better than Noopep, which used to be my go-to for that. Still is, but it functions a little better than Noopep for working memory. So 3 to 5 milligrams of PRL 853, okay? 3 to 5. That doesn't require large doses at all. 3 to 5 milligrams of PRL 853 is what would be my fourth strategy on what to take for martial arts. Okay, so that's martial arts, because martial arts is learning, relating to learning. Okay, so yeah, again, so you don't want to take the stimulatory stuff with martial arts. It's anything that's learning. You don't necessarily. That's why I didn't suggest modafinil over racetams for programming on a video we did recently, because you really want racetams. You want learning. You don't want to be just sped up exclusively. Athletes, this is a little bit of a tough one, because I mean, look, there is, but I mean, ultimately, yeah, it's a learning. It's still learning. You don't want to just shoot for modafinil, especially when you're running around. I mean, modafinil's safe and all, but I mean, I would feel a little funky about going on a run, like having just taken modafinil. Like I would, like you might be cranking up epinephrine and norepinephrine a little too high. I just wouldn't do that personally. You can run before taking modafinil. I just wouldn't take modafinil then go run. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm looking again at racetams, for that situation. I'm looking at racetams, for any sort of athletic thing. Because again, what constitutes you getting better and being an athlete is learning, right? It's learning, it's learning. So, basically all of those same strategies apply. 250 of pramiracetam by itself, possibly with a choline source, 5 to 15 milligrams Noopept, 3 to 5 milligrams PRL 853, again, all these separately, and then 700 to 1,000 milligrams aniracetam, again, separately. If you've got choline sources with them, 3 to 500 milligrams choline bitartrate, and or 75 to 200 milligrams alpha GPC. To find out if you need choline sources, again, get Smarter, Better, Faster, the Racetam Guide. But again, I'd really suggest sort of the same stuff for athletic situations. But there is an addition when it comes to athletes, and there is a little more specificity. Phenylpiracetam is banned in like the Olympics and a lot of other athletic situations because it gives a person the sense that they physically are more strong. I'm not sure exactly how that works. It could be because motor neurons, I mean not motor neurons, but neuromuscular sort of neuromuscular functionality largely has to do with acetylcholine. Like when you go out and lift weights and run, you're burning acetylcholine. That's what you use. That neurotransmitter is used to send those signals from the brain to muscles, particularly. So the optimization of cholinergic signaling via phenylpiracetam might really be why you feel like more energy when you're doing athletic work with phenylpiracetam. So phenylpiracetam would be my suggestion there. That would be the additional suggestion. There's one more. We'll get to that in just a second. Dose range is really on the low end, 25, on the high end to 200 milligrams phenylpiracetam. I'd probably want to shoot for something right in the middle for something like this, like 100 milligrams phenylpiracetam, okay? 100 milligrams phenylpiracetam. The last strategy would be acetyl L-carnitine. Acetyl L-carnitine is not so much nootropic. It is because it'll give you mental energy, but it's much more burning fat for fuel, okay? You're going to burn fat for fuel in brain cells and increasing the quantity of usable carnitine in the body, which is really what acetyl L-carnitine is. It's just acetic acid. It helps it to travel over to the brain too. Is what you'll need for the body to have either an even balance or at least an optimization of fatty acids for fuel, which is important. For some sports you're going to be bursting, and that's going to be glucose. But for some sport-related things, you're going to be doing a lower level fat burning movement, and that is primarily ketones and primarily fatty acids. So that Alcar is a good optimization for that. I shoot for 300 to 1,000 milligrams of Alcar, titrate accordingly. If you want to learn more about Alcar, Smarter, Better, Faster breaks a lot of Alcar stuff down. Get the Smarter, Better, Faster guide. So those would be my suggestions on martial arts. Martial arts is for learning, guys. Martial arts is learning, and you want to get nootropics for learning, not nootropics that speed you up. Racetam is particularly new pet PRL, particularly. And then for athletic performance, you want to shoot for phenylpiracetam and Alcar specifically. But otherwise, you're doing a lot of learning also, and so racetams apply there also. Okay, I think this was such an awesome question because everything we're about here is surgical use of nootropics, right? It makes me mad. I'm trying to keep this clean iTunes podcast. It makes me mad when folks don't get specific with nootropics, when folks are just like throwing out suggestions and they're not like, well, use this for this and this for this and this in this dose range and this for this particular brain state. You got to be surgical. I learned that very, very quickly because look, I'm an entrepreneur, so I got to take particular nootropic compounds for particular brain states, right? Like if it isn't right, if the compound isn't right and the dose range isn't right and the what they work on with the neurochemistry that the nootropic works on isn't right for the particular task, it's not going to make sense. I'm going to be way too sped up or way too whatever for a certain task that I need memory on. It doesn't make sense, right? And if I'm sitting down and doing programming or something or doing something memory centric, but I'm just hyped up like on tyrosine or caffeine, doesn't make sense. I would rather have racetam. So this question is like so awesome because it allows us to elucidate on more specificity around which nootropics to take for which things. Okay, that has been the podcast, episode number 22 of the Cortex Nootropics podcast. Again, check out the Cortex stack, livecortex.com. That's our powerful stack. It's motivation, speed of processing, verbal fluency. Powerful compounds, uridine monophosphate, CDP choline, artichoke extract. This is being compared to bedafinil. Get it at livecortex.com. The Racetam God Guide, we explained it all. I can't explain it anymore. Get that at livecortex.com. And same with Smarter, Better, Faster. These are both digital guides you can download for any device you have and read them right away. They're stack written, they're powerful, they've got instructions. Get all that at livecortex.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.